don't think just because someone's using ChatGPT or Claude that they somehow aren't doing what they need to do to protect their clients' confidentiality and privacy. Hopefully, they're not using the free version. If you are posing any generative AI tool a question, it will often tell you what you want to hear, and sometimes it's wrong. I would even encourage you to tell it, what is the witness's experience and education level? Because, again, most of us on this webinar are not only college educated, but law school educated. Your witness may not be.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another Justia webinar. My name is Nina, and I'll be the moderator for today. Now, to kick things off, I want to go ahead and introduce our speaker for today, Karl Seelbach. Karl Seelbach passionately represents his clients and plans for trial from day one. He's a fighter who handles cases with tenacity and precision. His adversaries describe him as a skilled advocate who is whip smart. Karl's law practice focuses heavily on personal injury, business, and employment litigation. Before launching his own firm, Karl worked as a litigation partner at Winstead PC, one of the largest firms in Texas, and he was mentored by some of the top litigators in the state, including former appellate judges and veteran trial lawyers. After spending almost 10 years at Winstead, Karl launched his own firm with his co-founder, Trek Doyle. Karl is also the co-founder, of Scribe AI. The webinar presentation that you're about to watch will be approximately 1 hour, and Karl will be taking questions directly from the audience, so you can feel free to submit those at any time by clicking the Q&A button in the control panel at the bottom of your screen and sending them in there. Now, without further ado, here is Karl to discuss from prep to impeachment, how to leverage AI to prep smarter, depose better, and review faster.
Okay, well, thanks everybody for listening. So we're going to dive straight into this. I am a very passionate user of AI in everything, in my personal life, in my professional life, and I'm also very passionate about depositions and deposition tech. So I hope to share some tools with you today that will be some concrete examples of how you can actually start leveraging AI later today or tomorrow. I give similar presentations across the nation. Here's a couple of gentlemen who are also very tech savvy. I often give this presentation with Stephen Sachs and Chase Hardy. They are not here today. You just got me solo. I gave one presentation with just Stephen, so I removed Chase, and then I figured today you get just me. And I did that in a matter of seconds with an AI tool called Nano Banana from Google. I do that to kind of start to just show you how simple it is to alter photographs and evidence. When we took that picture, we were actually standing in a hallway, and we just asked the app to put us in some futuristic looking courtroom. So just be on the lookout for AI generated evidence in all of your cases. You really can't just believe your own eyes anymore. You have to make sure that everything is authentic. Here's a little bit more about me. I think it's always nice to know a little bit about your speaker, who they are, where they're from. I'm originally born in Houston. I'm a Norwegian American and have family in Norway. I actually grew up over there. I was raised in Henderson, Texas. After we moved back from Norway, went to Stephen F. Austin for undergrad, where I met my lovely bride, Adrian. Went to South Texas for law school. I did the advocacy program there, my trial moot court, had a blast. Nina already mentioned I worked at Winstead. Moved to Austin in 2008 with the same firm. That was great. Love Austin. Basically, my life right now is split in 3 parts: law firm, Scribe, legal tech, and volleyball. Basically, my kiddos take a lot of my time, all my time and money. This leftover goes into club volleyball for my 2 wonderful kiddos. Those of you who have kids, particularly those who have kids in club sports, I'm sure you can relate. So a few disclaimers as we dive into the meat and potatoes. I am not your attorney. This presentation is not intended to be legal advice. Hopefully you don't fall asleep during this presentation. I hope I can keep it high energy and entertaining for you. If you see any typos, I blame AI, and hopefully you're not billing time for this. Or if you are, you bill it to education or admin or something like that. So any good litigator knows you have to give your audience a roadmap. So here's ours. We're going to talk a little bit about ethics. We're going to go over high level, what is generative AI and how does it work? I'm going to give you some sample use cases that don't involve depositions. We're definitely going to spend a lot of time on depositions, but I also want to give you some other helpful use cases, ways you can weave AI into your just day-to-day litigation workflow. And then we'll talk before, during, and after depositions. Prep, how you can leverage it live in the deposition room itself or Zoom room, and things that you can expedite and speed up and do better after the deposition's over. So with that said, Here's what we're trying to avoid. I really want to keep you out of the headlines. I actually just saw one last night. I didn't get a chance to drop it in, but we keep seeing attorneys again and again and again misusing AI tools. And it really is a kind of a failure of, I guess, training and education. Attorneys using things in a way that is just not designed to be used. We're going to cover a lot of tips here and hopefully keep you out of the press for all the wrong reasons. There are tons of examples of this. The cases on the screen are from an actual case where someone used we'll call it consumer off-the-shelf ChatGPT-like tool to help them with a brief. And guess what? It made up the cases and they went ahead and filed it anyway. It's not just attorneys, though. We have examples now of very prestigious companies. This one was Deloitte, who had to issue a refund to a governmental agency because its $400,000 report had a ton of hallucinated sources and information. So no one's immune. Also, don't think you can work your way around it by using multiple AI tools to cross-check each other. James is not the attorney who did this. He's the one who posted about it. But some attorney actually used 6 different AI tools and had them all cross-checking one another, thinking that somehow that would catch the hallucinations in the case law. It didn't, and the attorney was sanctioned, small amount, only $250. Ultimately, though, the lawyer was found to no longer be competent to serve as class counsel. So ultimately cost him a lot more than $250. So we're going to cover things today that make sure that you know how to use AI, not only for depositions, but in your practice in a way that you avoid that risk. We can't fully eliminate it, but we can get darn close with some of the things we're going to cover today. Ethics. 3 core concepts here. And I think this is true across all states, but just another disclaimer. I'm a Texas attorney, licensed in Texas. I also practice in federal courts across the state of Texas and arbitration, but I'm not licensed in any other state. So check your own state's rules. But the Texas rules and the American Bar Association rules are very, very similar. 3 core concepts here that I think cover AI usage: competence, communication, and confidentiality. So let's talk briefly about each of them. Competence. You're here, check the box. You're doing training. You're learning about new tools. You're learning about the latest technology. We have a duty to do that, to make sure we're aware of the benefits of the tech as well as the risks of the tech. And so those lawyers we mentioned earlier who were making the headlines for all the wrong reasons, they may have realized some of the benefits, but they surely didn't study enough to understand the risks. And so we're going to talk through the pros and the cons today. Communication. As attorneys, we have a duty to communicate with our clients about how we achieve their objectives. We'll talk a little bit more about that. The ABA actually issued a resolution. It's been a couple of years now since it came out, suggesting that as basically stewards of our clients' money, we have a duty to talk to them about whether we're going to use a tool like generative AI or not use a tool, if doing so would potentially materially impact the cost of the case. Now, I don't know that I agree with that resolution, and it's not necessarily binding on attorneys, but it was a very interesting take, suggesting that if something could drastically cut the cost, we have a duty to explain that to our clients. So maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. I'm going to give you some language you can use in just a minute with your clients, particularly in your engagement letters. And then the third category, confidentiality. That one is fairly self-explanatory. It's the same type of confidentiality concerns we've had for years with any, cloud practice management systems. Anything you use is kind of cloud-based. There's a little more nuance to it now that when generative AI first came out, attorneys were worried about, is what I submit to the AI tool somehow going to be used to train that model, train that software, so that what I put in could end up in something that comes out for someone else. That may have been a risk years ago. It's much, much less of a risk now, and I'm going to show you ways to eliminate that risk altogether. And so here's an example. If you'd like a copy of this, you can either email me or scan the QR code. It's completely up to you. I based this sample engagement letter clause on 2 things: the American Bar Association rules and the Texas Bar Association rules. So I really crafted it in a way that you're explaining it to your client in layman terms, what it is you may be doing on their cases and how you'll be doing it. And ultimately that, that you're responsible for checking everything, but you may use software such as generative AI to speed up the resolution and make it more efficient in handling their cases. Be on the lookout, though, also for your judges. Make sure you have you or someone on your team checking your judges' local rules. There are a lot of judges who have decided, I need to do something about this. I've read in the paper that someone filed something in some other court that had hallucinated cases. I don't want that to happen in my court. So I'm going to issue some type of requirement, some rule, some guidance. I personally don't think that's needed because we all have a duty of kind of candor and making sure that what we file with the court, that we've vetted the facts, that we've checked the case law, that it's still good law, and that it represents what we say it represents. But that said, I do think Judge Starr here, who's federal court judge, Northern District of Texas, did a pretty good job, and well, actually really good job, and didn't ban the use of generative AI, but just said that if you do use it, that you're certifying that you have checked the content, the brief, for accuracy. You've checked the quotes, you've checked the case law, you've checked the legal analysis, and I think that strikes a happy medium. That's ultimately the goal. About a year and a half ago, there was a suggestion at the federal court, Fifth Circuit level, that maybe we needed a rule at the Fifth Circuit. The Court of Appeals for the Fifth Circuit ultimately decided, I don't think we need a rule. And they took comments from the attorneys before, pro and con, and ultimately decided that, I used AI is not going to be an excuse for what would otherwise be a sanctionable offense. In other words, filing something with the court that has made up cases, or the cases don't stand for what the attorney says they stand for, or facts that, don't actually exist in the case. So let's talk a little bit about how generative AI works. And so one of my co-presenters from another presentation does a little bit better job. He's more of an engineer. So I'm not going to go deep in the weeds on this, but think of it like a calculator for words. And part of what it's trying to do is predict the next word in the sentence, the next sentence in the paragraph, and so on and so forth, based off of being trained on millions and millions of documents, right? They've trained this on, almost the entire internet, all types of resources. And some of the legal specific tools we'll talk about in just a minute have been trained on legal databases, case law, statutes, secondary sources. And another interesting side note, I didn't design this slide. I didn't type any of the words on this slide. I just asked the AI tool I was working with, can you design a slide that conveys what generative AI is and how it works to an audience of legal professionals? And this slide was designed and written by AI. So pretty impressive, some of the things that it can do. The other ethical concern we talked about is kind of confidentiality. Privacy falls right into that. You should absolutely check the terms and conditions of every tool you're using. The three on the screen are kind of common consumer-facing, well-known tools. Claude, which is owned by Anthropic, ChatGPT, which is owned by OpenAI, and Grok, which is owned by xAI. All of these tools now have enterprise-grade solutions. So don't think just because someone's using ChatGPT or Claude that they somehow aren't doing what they need to do to protect their clients' confidentiality and privacy. Hopefully they're not using the free version, because there can be problems with the terms and conditions for the free versions. But if you're signing up for the paid versions, the business versions, probably at a cost of anywhere from $20 a month to $100 a month, depending on some of the usage limits, you're probably going to have a pretty solid stack of privacy controls baked into that. The other topic that comes up, big disclaimer, I'm not a privacy expert. I'm not a privacy attorney. That said, these companies want businesses, want law firms using their tools. They are thinking about privacy and security. It is important to them. Just in the last 30 days, both OpenAI and Anthropic launched healthcare products, both for consumers, patients, as well as healthcare institutions, think hospitals, that are HIPAA compliant. And so, they have security and privacy top of mind. They really are trying to make sure that they do this in a way that we as business professionals can use them with comfort, knowing that security is top of mind. So do your own research, make your own assessment. But I can tell you, I have spent some time looking at the terms and conditions. And as long as you're paying for the tool and it's a business level tool, you should be in pretty good condition. So let's go into a few generative AI use cases, and then we're going to dive into depositions as promised. Timelines. This is kind of summarizing documents in timelines. I consider this is almost child's play for most generative AI tools at this point. I'm going to show you a couple really quickly and tell you what to look for. So as you're using any of these tools, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or Google Gemini. The one on the screen is Thomson Reuters Co-Counsel. They acquired that from Casetext for about $600 million just a year and a half ago. The thing to look for as you're putting documents in, as you're potentially connecting databases, is where's the source of truth? So you'll see here, this summary has little footnotes, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. If you were to click those, it would pull up the corresponding document that it relied on to write that summary, and it would actually pinpoint or highlight the exact source within that document. So that's something you want to look for. I always tell my audiences, make sure the source of truth is one click away in any tool you're using that uses generative AI, because that will give you some comfort that what is said is accurate. Because look, it is not 100% accurate 100% of the time. Now, I think it's getting very, very high. I would dare say into the high 90th percentile in accuracy, but it can still make mistakes. And I'm going to give you some examples in just a minute of what those mistakes can look like. Same example here. This is a timeline. Think medical records. Clio my law firm uses Clio for our practice management system. Clio just added a new option to upgrade your subscription to include Clio Work. No, they're not paying me to tell you about it. Yes, my firm ultimately, after piloting 3 tools, did land on using Clio Work for generative AI. They have features like this now where when you upload any records, it will prompt you, would you like to create a timeline? Would you like to create a summary? And it will go in and do that for you. So it's just very, very powerful tools. For those of you who bill by the hour, by the way, this is also another very interesting tool that my firm piloted and ultimately adopted. And it's called Ajax. And if you'd like a discount code, shoot me an email. I'm happy to introduce you to the founder. I actually met the founder at a legal tech conference last year. Great company. And what it does is it syncs up with your emails and with your calendar. And if you want, it can actually monitor what you're working on your computer. You can turn that off and on, so it doesn't have to monitor you all the time. It's completely up to you. But what it will do is it will draft sample time entries. So on the screen, it has identified what it thinks is the right case. So here we'll see 20-Hernandez-Hernandez visitation rights. It has drafted a proposed time entry, and it has put 0.1 as the suggested amount of time. It connects into Clio. So once you've reviewed this, confirmed it's accurate, adjusted it up or down, wordsmithed it to your liking, you can click release over here on the right-hand side, and it will drop that billable time directly into Clio on the matter. So it's a very impressive software. I've seen kind of an uptick in billable hours as a result of it, and I'd be happy to tell you more about it offline if you're interested. We're going to cover legal research, then we're going to dive into Depose. I feel like I have to cover legal research because there's so much fear-mongering, kind of fear, uncertainty, and doubt out there, and most of it is just completely misplaced. And so legal research, the key here is to use a legal research platform. Do not, no matter how good you've heard Claude's latest tool is, ChatGPT's latest tool is, pick any of them. As of the date of this webinar, none of them are bulletproof when it comes to legal research. They can still hallucinate cases and statutes. But the legal research platforms, Lexis is the one up on the screen. I'm going to talk a little bit about Clio Work, and I'll also cover Thomson Reuters tool. They will not hallucinate case law. Should not. I haven't seen them hallucinate case law. There is still some risk that they could hallucinate quotes in the summaries that they give you. So what do I mean by that? This is a real question that came across one of our cases. We had a case that was settling. There was a question about child support, whether child support was owed by the plaintiff. We actually knew there was child support owed, but no lien had been filed. So we contacted the Attorney General's office. They confirmed, yep, no lien has been filed, which kind of left an open question. Well, if there's known child support that's past due, but there's no lien, is there an obligation to protect that past due child support or not in connection with the settlement? So we were piloting 3 tools at the time. And so I used all 3 tools to kind of pose the question and see what the answer looked like. Ultimately, they're all very similar. And the nice thing about this is you're paying, I call it $3 signs. Instead of $20 an hour, or $20 an hour, I don't know anyone that charges that. Instead of $20 a month for the subscription per user, you're going to be paying, probably $100, $200, $300 a month, depending on which service you pick. but it's well worth it because you don't have to worry about hallucinated cases. So you're going to have links to real cases, real code sections. This is what Vincent, it was called Vincent at the time, it is now called Clio Work. They acquired Vincent and VLEX for $1 billion last year. This is what it looks like. You've got the question on the left of the screen. I realize the text may be small, but it's basically like a memorandum format. Question at the top, I've picked what law applies, Texas and related federal. It's given me the short answer, and then it's given me an in-depth summary. So similar to how an associate might write up a legal memorandum. And on the right-hand side of the page, I've got my legal authorities, any cases that are cited, statutes or regs, and so on. And I can click into those, and it will try to highlight on the right the section of the case or statute that supports the answer. So very well laid out. Westlaw's tool was also very solid. Look, we tried all three of these. They all had pros and cons. We ultimately selected Clio Work as what my firm thought was the best one. That's not to say the others aren't good as well. They're all quite similar in how they approach questions that are posed using their generative AI tool and the answers that come back. This was another example that came up in a case. We had a car wreck case where the plaintiff was claiming that a passenger had told the driver to do something or not do something just before, moments before the accident, and that somehow created a negligent entrustment claim. So we just posed the question and it quickly pulled the answer up and gave case law on the topic, as well as some secondary sources that were very, very helpful. But beware, I still catch from time to time, not hallucinated cases, but it tends to want to agree with you, and it tends to want to sound very confident in its answer. And so I kind of show you this half jokingly. If you are posing any generative AI tool a question, it will often tell you what you want to hear, and sometimes it's wrong. Again, not hallucinating cases, but possibly reading something into a case that doesn't exist, taking the analysis one step too far. I suspect they will fix this, but again, as of the date of this webinar, I'm still seeing it from time to time. It's very rare, but it still happens. So please be on the lookout for that. If you would like a protocol for your firm, I've actually revised it since I put this slide together, but I do think it's very important that we tell our team members, our paralegals, our associates, our fellow partners, here's kind of what we expect from you when you use a generative AI tool. I've got a few concepts that I baked into a protocol. This is the old version. I've actually enhanced it a little bit. If you want a sample, just shoot me an email or scan the QR code. I'm happy to get it to you. Drafting discovery. We're going to, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip over this one. I'll explain briefly what it is. You can upload anything that you would file in the case. So think key evidence is going to be presented at trial would be filed either with a summary judgment motion or in response. You can safely put any of that into any of these tools and use it to do things like generate tailored discovery requests. In other words, stop sending your boilerplate requests. And you can still send them, but add on some really narrowly tailored, well thought out requests based on the content from your case. And you can do that with some sample prompts. I've got a ton of prompts. I'm happy to share my prompt examples with you. Just reach out. But it's amazing how quickly these tools will take that type of content and really hammer out in a matter of seconds some very case-specific discovery. This was me using ChatGPT for this purpose. Again, we're not going to read through all this, but it blew me away. And now I tell my team on every case, please put some tailored requests at the bottom of our templates so that we can be very specific and track the pleadings and track the evidence in our case. So that was kind of a primer. I realize some of you probably already use AI for your practice, some may not. Let's get into depositions. So we're going to talk prep first. I'm going to give you kind of what I consider to be a unique, novel example of prep. Let me give you the backstory first, and hopefully you'll be able to hear this audio. Nina, for any reason, in just a minute when I play the audio, if you can't hear it, please just turn your mic off and let me know. But let me give you the setup first. I had a deposition in the Midland, Odessa area. I live in the Austin, Texas area. So that was a fair drive. It was about 5 to 6 hour drive. And I thought, that's a lot of dashboard time. It would be really nice if I could somehow listen to my case content before all these depositions start tomorrow. We had like 6 or 7 depositions over 2 or 3 days. And I was looking for a tool that could create some type of audio overview. And I landed on Notebook LM. Notebook LM is owned by Google. I use this tool. It was at least a year and a half ago, so it may look a little different now, probably even a little better now. But here's the basic concept. I took all the non-proprietary information in the case. There was a lot of conflicting witness reports, the pleadings, all the things that that I would otherwise read and review to get ready for a deposition. I put it in a Notebook LM, and then I listened. And here's kind of what that sounded like.
All right, so we're diving into this personal injury case against Family Dollar today. You sent a ton of material over witness interviews, expert reports, legal filings. It's a lot. A real legal drama unfolding.
Yeah, a lot of moving pieces for sure.
Our mission with this deep dive is to really break it all down, analyze those witness accounts, understand everybody's role and, any potential biases, and then ultimately try to uncover the strengths and weaknesses of Family Dollar's case.
Yeah, what's really striking is the number of people involved and then all the conflicting accounts of what actually went down. It's a real challenge to try to piece together the truth.
That's what we're here for.
But that's what we do.
Exactly. To set the stage.
All right. So I had it cut off intentionally because it does start to get in some stuff that, while not proprietary, was at least very specific to the case. But it ended up being almost an hour virtual podcast. Those are not real people. Those are generative AI created podcast hosts that talked to me about all the different conflicting witness reports and all the people and all the things that were involved in that case. It was just super, super cool. It kind of blew my mind away. And the use case that I really think, maybe even more so than depositions, that could be helpful for is getting ready to try a case. And the reason I say that, I'm going to explain the rest of it in just a minute. The reason I say that is the podcast hosts, these virtual podcast hosts, talked about the case in the same way, using the same types of words or phrases that I think a jury would talk about a case. So it didn't sound like legalese. It didn't sound like the way an attorney would talk about it. It just sounded like the way that a member of the general public would think about the issues. So it was really interesting to hear that. And it gave me some really interesting kind of theme ideas and ways to posture certain issues in the case that might resonate more with your audience. In addition to that audio overview, you can create study guides, timelines, briefing documents, FAQs. You can even do a mind map. So this is an example from that exact case where it took the incident that had occurred at the distribution center, and it broke all the material that I had uploaded down into buckets. The incident itself, the claimant, witnesses. And if I were to click one of these, it would mind map it into the next sub bucket, location, equipment, and so on. The super, super interesting way to kind of see your case at a high level. I just had, side note, this just happened. I should have put a copy in the slide deck. Sorry, I forgot. Last week, I just got a settlement demand, and it was a letter accompanied by a video. And I was really curious. I was like, okay, let me see. They must have put some time and effort into filming a video. No. Well, they did put time and effort into it, but not the type of video that I expected. They sent me a settlement demand video that was Notebook LM talking through generative AI developed slides of the key case facts, how this incident had impacted the plaintiff's life. I mean, it was extremely polished, very thorough. And I was just sitting back watching this probably 3 or 4 minute long PowerPoint presentation, similar to the presentation I'm giving you now, that was all being done by generative AI. And you could see the Notebook LM logo kind of at the bottom left or right. So I knew that they'd used that tool. So pretty interesting use of generative AI tools. I had not seen a demand accompanied by a AI created video before, but interesting. I'm still waiting to hear what my client thought of it and whether it impacts how they view the case or the settlement value. We'll see. So more depo prep. We're still pre-depo at this point. Claude. I have been using Claude more and more. It is owned by Anthropic. They tend to be very privacy focused. I really like their tools. They just added a new one called Claude Cowork. Cowork actually installs on your desktop, and it's sort of like an agent in that you can tell it to do things, and it will, you can grant it permissions to either your entire computer. I wouldn't do that yet. I didn't do that. Or you can just give it folder specific permissions. So you could download a bunch of materials related to one specific case, put them in a folder on your desktop, and you could point this Claude tool to it and tell it to go do stuff. Stuff being draft me a full set of discovery. I represent this party. Here's my objectives based on all the materials in this folder. Draft me an excellent set of discovery requests for production, interrogatories, requests for admissions, and it would just go do it. And when it's done, it'll drop a Microsoft Word draft into the same folder, and it'll tell you, here's a link to the draft I just created. So really cool tool. I'm going to show you how to use it for Depose. This is before Cowork. So this is more the chat. Cowork just came out very recently in the last few weeks, and I haven't had a chance to update this slide, but this is the chat-based interface. So this is similar to any of you who have used kind of Chat GPT, Google Gemini, very, very similar. You upload the documents as you're having the chat with the tool. And you can connect drives and folders as well if you want to with the chat. So this is a great example. This is a real example. I've changed the names to protect the innocent or not so innocent. But when I'm taking expert witness depositions now, I will get the plaintiff's expert report, the defense expert report, and I will have AI basically analyze the two and create a first draft of an outline for me that is organized in a way that it undermines the credibility of the witness that I'm going to depose, assuming I'm adverse to that witness, and kind of helps me understand their methodology, flaws in their methodology. And so we'll just show the example on the screen here. We have a plaintiff's safety expert report and a defense expert report. And, the key here is you got to be detailed in your prompts. Now, you don't need to write an essay, but it should be more than just see the attached expert reports and draft me an examination outline. It'll do it, but it's probably not going to impress you because you really didn't give it very clear marching orders of what you're trying to do, what you want to do. And so, again, I'm happy to share my prompts with you. I have a prompt guide for depositions. Just shoot me a message. But this is an example of where I have told it the type of outline I want, my objectives for the deposition, and provided it source materials. And it has now gone in and created a very solid first draft. I will tell you there are parts of this that, oh yeah, this obvious, of course that would be in my draft. Well, guess what? I didn't have to type it. And the other thing that I always tell people is if it's not detailed enough, if it is missing some point that you want to cover, then just ask it that in a follow-up question. Hey, I need you to expand on this concept related to, training on forklifts. Can you look at the attached OSHA materials and draft questions related to blah, 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 whatever that is. And it will then revise the outline or add a new section to the outline that covers exactly what you want it to cover. Think of it as a solid first draft. I wouldn't walk into a deposition with this type of outline without at least reading it and vetting it and making sure that it's supported by the materials that I uploaded. But it can save you so much time in creating that first draft. I also think it can do a pretty good job of prepping witnesses. So I want to let's shift your mind from you're getting ready to take the deposition, whether it's of a claimant or a respondent or defendant. I want to think prepping. You're prepping a witness, maybe a lay witness, maybe someone who has never been deposed before. Many of our firms have kind of some internal, I call them Prep 101 documents. They cover basic things, and they're good. Don't get me wrong. When someone's never been deposed before, they've never seen a deposition, never been in the room with one, it is super important that you cover those basics. But many of us that do this for a living and we take, tons of depositions or defend tons of depositions, you kind of forget what it's like to be in the room for the first time as a lay witness. And I think this is a great example of how you can use some of these tools like Claude to help you develop a very thorough preparation guide to get that witness ready for their deposition. So the example on the screen is for a case involving a forklift operator. And I'm telling the tool, here's what I want you to do for this prep. I want you to help me identify anticipated questions that the other side might ask. I want you to, provide some suggested frameworks, not necessarily exact language. We're not trying to script it, but here's how to think about things. I don't want you to speculate, and give some examples of, based on the facts of the case, potential traps to think about, potential pitfalls that could come up. So I think it's a great way to prep. I'm going to show you kind of what it looks like. Depending on your state, in Texas at least, this is not something you would give to the witness because that would make it discoverable. You would need to produce it. So this is more something for you that is your guide that you look at as you're prepping your witness, whether over Zoom or in person, and it will give you as much as you put in. And by that, I mean you want to give it context. You want to tell it your objectives. You want to tell it things you're worried about. Like if there are certain weaknesses that you think the witness may have. I would even encourage you to tell it, what is the witness's experience and education level? Because, again, most of us on this webinar are not only college educated, but law school educated. Your witness may not be. So if you happen to know your witness's experience, their education level, their background, where they're from, you can tell it to craft this prep guide in a way that is tailored to the audience, to the person. And it will do an extremely impressive job of that. I really like to think of these tools as thought partners. It is a way to have a second set of eyes, a second brain of sorts to test arguments, test theories, craft opening statements, craft deposition outlines. And it really will blow you away if you just make it a part of your daily workflow. Make sure you are using a tool that your law firm has approved for use. I know some firms have had, at least when Generative AI first came out, they had a don't use it at all policy. I think that's shifted for most firms, and it's shifting for those who maybe are getting their head out of the sand and realizing this is going to change the way that we practice law. So make sure you're using an approved tool and that you know its limitations. So prep, let me back up one step. So prep, really, the best way to use it, in my opinion, is outlining, whether that's preparing your own outline or preparing your prep guide outlines to get witnesses ready. And you can put your potential deposition exhibits into these tools. You can put copies of the pleadings into these tools. Again, the more detailed you are with your prompt, the more information you give it, the more thorough job it will do. So taking depositions with AI, what does that mean? What does it look like? There's three core components here. And the first one is you should get a real-time transcript with every deposition you take. And with today's technology, it shouldn't cost more. It should just be included. And I'm going to show you kind of what that looks like with Scribe. There's obviously other tools out there too, but the software has come so far that getting a real-time rough transcript using the latest software, you can get it all the way up to 97 to 98% accurate just from the software before anyone ever proofreads it and kind of professionally formats it. Once you have that real-time transcript, you can either in real time as the deposition is unfolding or on a break, leverage generative AI tools against it. So two different concepts. The real-time transcript is not being created using generative AI. ChatGPT is not guessing what the transcript should say. The real-time transcripts being created using usually proven ASR, automated speech recognition technology that's been around for 20 plus years and has gotten exceptionally better in the last, say, 3 years. Or the other alternative is you can also sometimes get a real-time transcript if you have a stenographer in the deposition who's typing a rough in real time. So those are kind of the two ways real-time works. Once you have the real-time, though, this is where things can get really interesting. You can then use AI to leverage the real-time transcript. I'm going to show you examples of what that looks like, but the key concepts being you can chat with it and you can get insights out of it, and you can even use documents to compare the real-time text from the transcript with the key documents in your case or with your outline. So let's kind of see what that looks like. I'm going to play just a couple of screen recorded demos real quick, just in the interest of time, and then we'll talk about them.
Called real-time transcript will appear. Launch the real-time transcript and watch it update. It updates every few words and continues until the event ends. It streams the ASR-generated text as the event happens. Keyword search. Change font size. Chat with the transcript when you need it. Get your questions answered. And finish your depo strong.
All right, so that gives you kind of an example of what the interface can look like. That's Scribe's current interface. There's a couple of other tools in the market that have similar features, but what can they be used for? What is that like? Think about that chat widget on the right-hand side of the screen. What's an example of something you could do with that? Here's a sample prompt on the screen. This is for a construction litigation case. Imagine you're hours into the deposition. Sometimes these construction cases can have, a gazillion parties, the GC, the sub, the owner, the sub of every sub. And, I have seen lawyers in construction cases I won't say fall asleep, but let's say close to it. And so you could be hours into one of these depositions and really just want to recap, break down everything the witness said about issue X. And if there's any contradictions, point those out for me. And so this is an example of something you could ask the AI, and it would then analyze the entire transcript, and it would point out exactly what the witness has said so far. These are some abbreviated examples for purposes of this webinar. But what you'll notice is, remember earlier I said the source of truth should always be one click away. There's a hyperlink here to the left that has the timestamp. If you were to click that within the app, it would pull up the corresponding segment of the real-time transcript. Even if the deposition's been going for hours, it would still pinpoint you back to what it's relying on for the summary that it just gave you. It can also spot contradictions where maybe the witness said something at the very beginning of the deposition, but now that we're 2 hours in, we're saying something a little bit different. And it can suggest follow-up questions for you. It is not legal advice. It's not intended to replace your advice, but it can be really good as that thought partner, brainstorming, giving you some ideas of questions maybe you should ask. Here's another example, timelines. This is kind of, again, for most of these AI tools, child's play, but it can be really, really helpful in a case, particularly a case where you've talked through a lot of different, say, dates, timeline of events, things that have happened, years ago. Sometimes, when you're in the fog of war, as they call it, that can start to get a little foggy in your brain. And this is just an example of something you could ask the AI tool next to the real-time transcript and have it break down a timeline for you. Here's what the witness has covered on that topic so far, kind of in timeline sequence, and give you a link back to the real time. If you want to go read the transcript just to spot check it, you can, and then give you some suggested kind of follow-up questions. Ultimately, what we found was, attorneys wanted an easy button for this. And so in other words, a lot of attorneys we're working with said, that's great, and I really do like the chat feature, but it's hard for me to think of what to ask. It would be nice if I could just press an easy button and the software would kind of do it for me. And so you're going to see, I realize the text could be small, so I'll just tell you what it says. Up here on the right, it says Insights, and this is in preview right now. But Insights is designed to where when you click Insights and you activate it, it will spot 3 different things for you. Any inconsistencies in the witness's testimony, any follow-up items where maybe things have been discussed, but the gap wasn't fully closed. And it's going to suggest potential follow-up questions you might want to ask to close that gap. And then it will also identify unanswered questions, things that maybe came up in the deposition that the witness never really fully answered at all. And once you're into it, so the example on the screen here on the right-hand side is kind of what it looks like within the web application itself. Here's an example. It spotted 2 inconsistencies. And then once you click into one of these, so we clicked in here to discrepancy on the cracking cause, it explains, here's what the witness said, and it has timestamps, so I could click to go back to the real time if I needed to. And here's some suggested follow-up questions that you may want to ask to clarify those issues. So again, it's really trying to spot things that you might miss or you might forget so that you don't, in the deposition, finish the deposition, either driving home later that day or just in another meeting later that day thinking, I forgot to close a loop on that particular issue. And so that has been a very, very powerful tool. It's really interesting to see all the use cases people have for that. But one thing that we've been working on is, as the depo is unfolding, it'd be really nice if you could have it not only analyze the real-time transcript, but also check your outline and maybe prior transcripts in the case, whether it's different witnesses that have already been deposed, whether it's expert transcripts from other cases that you found through your network, or just the exhibits in the case, basically to compare what is this witness saying versus what do the documents actually show in the case. And so this feature has just launched actually today. I want to show you very quickly kind of what it looks like. This is just a little Loom I had recorded internally yesterday. So you're the first to see it. Here it is. Hey folks, it's Karl Seelbach, one of the founders of Scribe. I want to give you a glimpse of a new feature that the Scribe team is launching that's going to allow you to upload files and in real time have those compared to your deposition transcript as the deposition's unfolding. I think this is going to be a game changer, particularly for making sure that you cover everything that's in your outline. So here we go. I'm going to close this video preview and show you. So we have a real-time transcript here on the left-hand side. So let's say you're on a break in your deposition. You could upload a copy of your deposition outline, PDF only for now. And so that's going to take just a few seconds to load, file uploaded, deposition outline. And then you could just ask it, have I missed anything from my depo outline? Don't worry about typos. It should understand what we're asking. If so, suggest follow-up questions to close the loop/gap. So what's going to happen is hit this button here to submit that. And the AI is going to analyze the real-time transcript, and it's going to see, did I cover everything in my outline or not? And if not, so that gives you kind of a sneak peek. Again, this tool just launched, but you can cross-check anything. You could cross-check your depo outline as was being shown there. You could cross-check exhibits in the case. I encourage attorneys to really take longer breaks and work. This is work that you can do on a break in a deposition. That's not to say you couldn't do it in real time. You could do it in real time as you want to. But some attorneys that can be distracting. It's a lot to do all at once. So it depends on how tech savvy you are and how comfortable you are doing that. But having the real-time transcript, it's searchable, keyword searchable on the left, and the ability to leverage this comparison to documents on the right is just an extremely powerful experience. And then at the end of the deposition, when it's over, one of the great things about these modern tools like Scribe is you walk away with much more than just your notes. You have a full transcript synced to the video as soon as the deposition is over that you can leverage these AI tools against. And then within a week, no rush fee, within a week, you have a full transcript. The final transcript, professionally verified by professional transcriptionists in a legal format, page and line numbers, all the things we're used to seeing, so that you can use it for briefing in the case or whatever you may need. So it's a very proven process at this point, and it is really the future of digital reporting is here now. So what does that mean? Like, what else can you do post-depo? It's great to have the PDF, but we like to think of your deposition record as an asset, not just a static file, not just a PDF, but something you can actually leverage. So let me show you kind of what that looks like when the deposition is completely over, how you can dive into a platform like this and leverage it. So we're just going to give a very straightforward example first, which is we're just going to ask, what did this witness say about the sufficiency of the warning? This is a simple slip and fall case at a grocery store. But if you're the one who took the deposition and it's been 6 months, or maybe you're the partner and an associate took the deposition, you could dive into the platform as soon as the deposition's over, and you could ask the AI to analyze the deposition, find the answer, and it will create a video clip of it. So here's kind of what that looks like. We've got the answer on the right, and it's pinpointed the video clip.
In your expert opinion, was this an adequate warning?
Yeah. Objection form.
And then on the right-hand side, expert opinion, was this an adequate warning?
Yes.
So on the right-hand side, you can save that clip to your clip list. So basically, the interface is transcript on the left, video synced in the middle, clips that you can create either yourself. If you want to just highlight text to create a clip, super simple. Just highlight it like you would using kind of a PDF highlight tool or Microsoft Word, and just click create clip. The clips show up in the middle here. You can then download those clips to your computer with subtitles if you want subtitles, or you can create share URLs. So think about like how we would share a YouTube video with each other. I'll show you that in just a minute. And then you create playlists if you want. We actually just had an attorney last week create a playlist of 150 clips they had created and wanted to stitch them all into one long video, I assume for trial prep. You can also summarize things. There's a lot of summary tools on the market. I found most of them are very good, but almost too much. Like, I don't personally want a 30-page summary of a deposition, and my client doesn't want a 30-page summary of a deposition. So the way that Scribe approaches it is a little different. You can either tell it what type of summary you want and what issues you want it to focus on, or you can use the built-in executive summary. And the executive summary is just that. It's an executive summary focused on the highlights of the deposition. Here are the main points from this deposition, any legal implications, admissions and contradictions, strengths and weaknesses, and it will create some video clips of those highlights as well that you can then save if you want.
Sure. So first I reviewed the videos so I could get a general understanding.
And so it actually provides an interesting way to just create video clips for you. And what I mean by that is, instead of, yes, you could just manually go through. So here's kind of a final transcript in the application. You could go through it, read it, highlight it, and create clips. Or you could just ask the topic that you want clips created on. So here we'll ask, how did the witness describe whether the impact was heavier on the passenger side or the driver side of the vehicle? It's going to analyze the transcript on that topic, and it's going to find exactly what the witness said and create a video clip of it.
Okay. So was the impact heavier on either the driver's side or the passenger side, or was it even throughout the front part of the vehicle?
I would say even.
Okay.
And then you could save that clip if you need to save it.
So
Save it to your clip list. And what's really interesting here is you could be doing this in the rough transcript that's available the same day as the deposition. And then within a week, the final transcript is going to show up in the web application. Yes, you'll get a PDF as well, but the final transcript will show up in the web app. And when it shows up, it's going to add to the clips that you already created, you or your team. It's going to add the page and line numbers for you. So all those clips that, let's say, day one, it's fresh on your mind. You just took the deposition. You know exactly what you want clips of for your demand letter, for your report, for your motion that you need to file with the court. Yes, you can put these types of clips in briefings as well. It's going to populate page and line numbers for each of your clips, so you can track exactly where those things were said in the transcript. So it's just a super cool way to create video clips. It's extremely useful. It can also draft discovery for you. And so here's an example. This is the same interface, just the browser mode was set to dark. I think I must have created this one at night. And I'm going to tell it basically to create, imagine the deposition just ended. I want some tailored requests. So I'm going to pause that for just a minute here. 10 RFPs, 5 ROGs, and 10 RFAs designed specifically to accomplish certain objectives based on the testimony from today. And so it can take testimony as soon as it's over and draft tailored requests that you could copy and paste and put directly into your discovery request in Microsoft Word or whatever tool you use to get some discovery out. You could literally be sending discovery the same day the deposition's over and use an AI tool like this to draft it for you. And then sharing, I want to show you what sharing looks like. This is a common question. Okay, this all looks really cool. I see how you create the clips in the application, but how do I share it? What does it look like to others that want to watch it? So here's kind of what that looks like.
On the web code say.
Also what for?
So again, we can create a URL. So think YouTube clip that I'm going to share with somebody of that video, of that deposition using the scribe tool.
And what do the words on the what?
And so this is an example of what the recipient would see when they click the link you shared with them. It would open up their browser on their computer, on their tablet, on their smartphone, and it would play the corresponding testimony. This one, it has a rough transcript, but it would also show the final if there was a final transcript for that particular event.
Or code say.
And you can go full screen if you choose.
Can you explain to the jury, to the extent it needs to be explained, what?
So just an extremely simple way to create and share video clips. There's all types of ways you can use this. We've seen attorneys put video clips in their briefing to make their briefing more compelling. We've gotten feedback from judges who actually like this for a couple of reasons. One, they don't have to fumble with hundreds of pages of PDFs, exhibits, deposition transcripts to try to find the text and make sure that the attorney didn't overstate the impact of the testimony or what the witness said. They can actually just watch it and see the witness in their own words testify as to the key facts. And, some of them said it could potentially impact how they view a particular witness because now they're going to see the witness. They're going to see the tone. They're going to see the things that get lost on just a black and white text transcript page. We've also seen it used in settlement correspondence back and forth, whether it's a demand or a counteroffer. I actually just had an attorney text me a couple of weeks ago who just finished a scribe deposition in the morning, got some really compelling testimony, sent the clips, URLs in an email to the the lead attorney for the other side, who I guess may not have been at the deposition. And the lead attorney said, okay, we're going to cancel the rest of the depositions. Send me a settlement demand, a Stowers demand, full policy limits, and I'm going to take it to my client. So again, once you get someone under oath and you get some really compelling testimony, this is a way to leverage it. Ultimately, these tools are here. All these tools we covered today are ready for you to start throwing things at them. You can, I think, create a better case, a more impactful case, a more persuasive case, leveraging AI in your workflow. I am going to look at the Q&A, but if you have a more detailed question that for some reason I'm not able to cover, or you want a copy of anything I covered today, whether it's the disclaimer clause, the prompt guide that I mentioned, either shoot me an email or just scan the QR code, completely up to you. I'm going to see if I can figure out how to get to the questions. So give me just a moment here, and I'm going to try to pull up the Q&A, or Nina's going to do it for me. One of the two. Oh, here we go. I see it now. Q&A. So I'm just going to take these in order of how they came. So here we go. Is this co-counsel or co-counsel iLegal 2.0? The example of co-counsel was a pilot that my firm did about 4 months ago. So that would have been probably October, November of 2025. I don't know exactly which version it was, 2.0, 1.0, but it was the version that would have been in place around October, November of 2025. So I'm going to mark that one answered. Is there one you could recommend to be your office assistant completing basic forms? Great question. I assume you mean AI tool. I think the closest one that I've seen personally that I think could be an assistant, particularly for completing basic forms, would be Claude Cowork. I think that is the closest I've seen to being able to basically point it to a folder, give it a specific task, and have it go do something. There are some more complex agent versions of even ChatGPT has one where, you almost, I feel like sometimes need a separate computer for it to go do things, because it'll open your browser, it'll go navigate things. I haven't turned any loose in that way, but I have used some to fill out forms and create first drafts of things. And I think Claude Cowork does a good job of that. We have someone else who's been using ChatGPT Pro for $200 a month and doesn't feel like they're getting much more than the $20 a month reason. It's funny that I've actually experienced similar things myself, where I've upgraded to the higher paid version of whether it's Anthropic's tool or OpenAI's tool or xAI's tool, and not noticed a giant step in functionality. I think really one of the things it does is it creates a much higher usage limit. Some of these tools, depending on what you're paying, are going to have a context window or a number of tokens that you're allowed to submit. Think of tokens like currency, like whether it's 100,000 tokens or 1 million tokens. I forget kind of the numbers they put behind them, but ultimately, once you hit a certain threshold, you can't really ask any more questions, or you can't have the context of the conversation expand beyond a certain number of documents or a certain number of gigabytes. So sometimes it can be worth more to pay just to expand the context window and the number of tokens. Why would you use a legal research tool rather than straight out Lexis or Westlaw? Oh, that's actually a really good question. I'll give you an example. I often get, many of us who work in kind of multi-attorney firms and aren't solos, you probably often get questions of either in your Slack channel, Zoom chat, email, whatever, hey, team member, I just had an issue pop up in one of my cases. Has anyone had this happen before? Do you have any case law on this issue or that issue? Here's the fact scenario. Here's kind of what I'm looking for. What I've found is I've been doing this now for 3 months since we officially launched our generative AI tool for legal research at my firm. I will just take the question that someone posted, I paste it into Clio Work, I hit submit, and almost every single time it gives me a memo on the issue with relevant case law. And so to help train my team, I've been like, hey, it's fine to poll the team. We definitely want collaboration. But as a first step, you may just want to drop that into a generative AI tool that's legal research specific, because it can be a very powerful way. And so again, whether you're using Lexis's AI tool or Westlaw's AI tool, I think the reason to use the AI tool rather than just pure Lexis or Westlaw is you can ask the questions just like you would of a coworker in natural language, and you're going to get essentially a memorandum type for you with supporting answers. It's going to speed things up a lot. And then When using the next question that came up is, when using Scribe, must you enter prompts to tailor the insights, such as inconsistencies, follow-up items, or unanswered questions? No, you don't have to enter any prompts if you're using the Insights feature. All you have to do is click a button and it will analyze those things for you, using some tuning and some prompting that the engineers have done on the back end. Great question. You can still do your own independent questions in the chat, like we showed earlier. So you definitely, if you feel like something's missing or it didn't cover it from the angle that you wanted it covered, you can still do that manually, just tapping in that chat window on the right-hand side. The next question is, do courts permit real-time transcription of testimony aside from like a court official transcript? If I'm understanding the question correctly, since we were focused on depositions primarily today, you would not want to take a real-time transcript that comes out as a rough transcript, whether that's a stenographer who's typed it as a rough transcript or you've used a software tool to create that rough transcript. You would not want to file that with the court. That's why Scribe has a proven human-in-the-loop process for professionally producing final transcripts. And so I would definitely recommend going through that process to get a final transcript and using a final transcript with a court. Now, could you use a tool like this in the courtroom as you're examining witnesses in connection with a trial or something like that? That's just going to depend on the court's rules as it relates to audio recording. So you just want to check the court's rules. If the courts permit audio recording, you could probably spin up a software tool like this in real time and have it create a rough transcript and do some of these functionalities for you. And so the next question is, do you recommend using Scribe in place of a court reporter or in addition to a court reporter? Scribe is a digital reporting solution. So this is kind of the future of digital reporting is here. In almost every state, 44 states allow what's called non-stenographic depositions. Scribe is that, and it is a form of digital reporting. So that is the primary way to use it. If for some reason you had a stenographer that you just truly love, let's say it's your sister-in-law, you could use some of these tools. We do have a bring your own court reporter option if you have a stenographer that you either have to use because your client's contracted with them, or that you just really enjoy using, but you also want these functionalities. Scribe does offer that as an option as well. And then, have you experienced any tech compatibility issues when sending video clips? No, we haven't experienced any yet for sharing video clips like I described, because the URLs are designed to be compatible with any modern web browser. So think Google Chrome, think Apple Safari. Any modern web browser is able to handle those types of clip links. And in addition to the URLs, you can also download the clips yourself. So you can download them as MP4 files, so you don't have to worry about internet connections. You can get subtitles put into the video clips themselves. That way you don't even have to worry if the internet's working or not. You have it on your computer ready to use. So just a couple more that appear to be open questions. What liability are you opening yourself up to if errors uncaught are presented? Very interesting question, anonymous attendee. Let me make sure I understand the question. So you as the user, the attorney, could you be opening yourself up to issues if errors that are not caught are presented? Well, if I'm understanding the question correctly, I don't think so. There's a couple of reasons for that. This chat history, this AI functionality is not saved. It doesn't persist. It's live. It's used in real time during the deposition. And unless you copy and paste it into something else, as soon as that deposition is gone, that deposition session is over, within 24 hours, that information, that chat, those inconsistencies, all that stuff that was spotted is completely gone. So from that standpoint, from kind of a data retention standpoint, it's designed to be there to kind of be an extra set of eyes and give you some software assistance as the deposition is unfolding. If I didn't understand your question properly, please shoot me an email. I'd be happy to dive into it a little deeper. Ultimately, again, it's not intended to be legal advice. It's just intended to be you leveraging software to try to spot issues and hopefully help you take a better deposition. So I assume if you made errors that were uncaught, whether a machine spots it or doesn't spot it, if you made the error, you made the error. Any tools available for multilingual depositions? Absolutely. Scribe uses a interpreter service that provides translation in almost any language you can think of. We are also looking at software options for kind of an unofficial real-time translation. We don't have that yet, but it is on our radar as well. So really great questions. I think I covered all the open questions. Nina, if you see any that I didn't cover, let me know. Otherwise, connect with me on LinkedIn, shoot me an email if you have questions. Again, I love this stuff. I wouldn't be presenting if I didn't. And Nina, thank you for being a great host as always.
Thank you so much, as always, for your knowledge and sharing that with us today, Karl, as well as answering all of our audience questions. We really appreciate that. And thank you to everyone who submitted questions. Your participation always really brings a new energy to these webinars, so we're always so grateful to have you participate. We want to thank you all so much for joining us for another Justia webinar. I do want to remind you all, as I did at the top of our presentation, of the services available to you through our website platform, Justia Elevate. It's our innovative, feature-packed website solution specifically for law firms and includes great AI tools to help you boost your online presence, including our Justia AI Writer, designed to help you create effortless content, the AI-powered Justia chat to enhance your leads, and FAQs for AI to help you better your chances of showing up in AI results. You can visit elevate.justia.com/price. Thank you all so much for joining, and have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you again, Karl, for being here. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next video.